Hello and welcome to the 23rd Annual Legacies Dallas History Conference. I'm Director of Libraries Joe Giudice. Dallas Public Library is thrilled to be hosting this year's event in our Dallas History and Archives Division. We take immense pride in our historic photograph and map collections, manuscripts and personal papers from influential Dallas figures, newspaper clippings, books, magazines, and so many more pieces that together tell the story of our city. As a public library, we value the preservation of this important material for future generations, as well as our ability to make it accessible to all researchers, from the serious scholar to the mildly curious. I wish I could welcome you all in person at the library today. However, we have prepared a virtual tour for you to get a glimpse of all we have to offer. I hope you will find an opportunity to check out our collections in person one day, including our permanent exhibits of original broadsheet of the Declaration of Independence and Shakespeare's First Folio. Our staff is ready to help you with any of your research needs. Please enjoy the conference.
Good morning. I'm Michael Hazel, the editor of Legacies, the history journal for Dallas and North Central Texas, and the coordinator emeritus for this annual Dallas History Conference. First, I want to thank Joe Giudice and the staff here at the Dallas Public Library for facilitating this conference. We had originally hoped to meet here live, but the ongoing pandemic forced us to shift to a virtual conference for the second year in a row. We hope by next year, 2023, we'll all be here together. Joe mentioned the behind-the-scenes tour, which the staff of the Dallas History Division has put together. It will take you to conservation areas, storage areas, staff areas that are not normally open to the public. You'll also be treated to some historic images of dining in Dallas, provided by the library, the Dallas Municipal Archives, and a private collector, Brad Hamilton. For those of you who've been in Dallas for a while, I think they may bring back some fun memories for you. About those breaks, we will start with 2 speakers and then take a 10-minute break. After 2 more speakers, we'll take another break and then have a 5th speaker and a special panel discussion, which will conclude the conference. If you have questions for any of the speakers, please email legacieSDHC@gmail.com. That's legacies, Legacies, DHC@gmail.com. You might put the speaker's name in the heading. We will forward those to the speakers and they will respond to you as they're able. Thanks. Our first presenter this morning will be David Preziosi. David has a passion for preserving the historic places that make our communities unique and a better place to live. Using his Bachelor of Environmental Design, a Master of Urban Planning, and a Historic Preservation Certificate, he's worked tirelessly for more than 25 years in planning and preserving historic places. After graduate school, David worked in city planning at Natchez, Mississippi, and then became director of the Mississippi Heritage Trust, a statewide nonprofit. Since returning to Dallas in 2012 as executive director of Preservation Dallas, he has worked to expand its programming and events and help develop tours, mobile apps, and other amenities. David serves on the board of Greater Dallas Planning Council, Heritage Oak Cliff, and Docomomo Dallas chapter. In 2018, he was inducted into the College of Fellows of the American Institute of Certified Planners. And in 2019, he received a Community Honors Award from AIA Dallas. And in 2020, he received an Outstanding Alumni Award from the College of Architecture at Texas A&M University. Today, his presentation will focus on the architecture of eating, Dallas's delectable dining establishments.
When you go to a restaurant, what do you remember? The food, the service, the design, the decor? Most probably remember the food and service, and some might remember the design if it was truly memorable. The architecture of restaurants can be very important in helping to attract business and add to the dining experience by transporting one to another time or place, producing an exotic atmosphere, or using a unique exterior design. Today, we are going to explore the history and architecture of several distinctive restaurants located in Dallas, and how their designs helped them to stand out. In our journey, we will go back to the early days of the flour mill, visit a frosty place for tasty treats, head to the ranch for some barbecue, travel to the desert oasis of North Africa, and go googie with a restaurant that led to one of the world's leading casual dining companies. I hope you're hungry for this culinary and architectural adventure. Our first stop is to Fair Park and the 1936 Texas Centennial for some hot biscuits prepared by a national cooking celebrity of the time in a replica mill building. Among a sea of streamlined, buff-colored Art Deco buildings was one of a few buildings to eschew the prevailing modern architectural style of the Texas Centennial for something a little more rustic and thematic. Located a short distance from the State of Texas building at the corner of Grand Avenue and Centennial Drive was the Flour Mill Industry Building, constructed by a partnership of the leading Texas flour mills and grain elevator companies to showcase their products and industry. There are conflicting accounts of the inspiration for the design of the stone mill. The Dallas Morning News in 1936 called it a quote-unquote Old English mill, and an advertisement during the Centennial called it a replica of the original Burris Mill, which stood in McKinney in 1836. It was reported that the timbers for the construction of the Centennial building came from the homestead and mill barn that belonged to W.C. Burris and was dismantled 40 years prior. The mill consisted of intersecting 1- and 2-story gable roof forms with dormers and 2 small towers with pyramidal roofs. The roofs were covered in hand-split wood shakes, and the exterior walls were covered in stone, laid in a traditional fashion. A small bridge led from Grand Avenue over a meandering stream to the main entrance to the exhibits. A motor-driven pump recirculated the stream to turn the wooden water wheel. Surrounding the mill was a rustic split-rail wood fence. Even though the exterior was designed to look old, the interior was not. Inside was a modern experimental flour mill testing out new milling technology. 3 model kitchens with the latest equipment and a tea room. There are a few nods to the old, with the hand-carved wood beams connected with wooden pegs and a massive stone fireplace that was 8 feet wide, 10 feet high, and 5 feet deep. The flour milling exhibit educated people about the milling process with glass tubes to watch the flow of flour during the milling process. A miniature grain elevator demonstrated how grain was unloaded from a rail car to the elevator. And products made with the flour milled on site could be tasted in the tea room. The star of the exhibit was Miss Ida Mae Chitwood. She was a famous cooking personality of the time, recruited by the group of flour milling companies responsible for funding the exhibit. Ida had quite a backstory and rise to fame. She was born in Tennessee, moved with her family to Texas when she was young, and married Lauren Chitwood, who was killed in a farming accident 10 months after their only child was born. Ida then decided to attend school in Tennessee to become a teacher. One of her instructors suggested she become a home demonstration agent to teach cooking skills to improve household living. She acquired her certification in 1918 and moved back to Texas and worked in several counties before she started traveling the state teaching cooking classes. That was a success, and by the 1930s, she was well known nationwide. And with her successes, she bought a house in University Park. Ida was a hit at the Centennial, and the flour milling exhibit was a popular attraction. When she was not demonstrating her flair for cooking all sorts of items with flour, she would make fresh biscuits. They were free to those visiting the attraction, and people would wait in line over an hour to get one of her famous biscuits. Ida also penned a special cookbook called 100 Centennial Recipes, which celebrated 100 years of progressive flour milling in Texas. The recipes were from her famous collection, and the cookbooks were distributed compliments of the flour mills of the Southwest. Of course, the first recipe in the book was for buttermilk biscuits. After the Centennial ended, the building continued to be used as an exhibit for the flour mill industry until 1946. It then became the home of Elsie the Cow as part of the Borden's Dairy exhibit during the state fair. The 1950s brought about a series of restaurants that occupied the space, and Youngblood's Chicken opened there in 1965 and operated for 12 years, followed by El Chico, which was there until 1981. After that, it became the Old Mill Inn, which still operates serving Southern cuisine. Today, the building remains much as it did for the Texas Centennial. The stone edifice still projects a rustic quality. However, the wood split rail fence is long gone, having been replaced by a metal picket fence. The water wheel had rotted away over time, and in 1998, a new one was installed to match the original. Crossing the river to Oak Cliff, it's time for a tasty frozen treat at our next stop, located along Zhang Boulevard across from Lake Cliff Park. There was an interesting building there with an extremely whimsical facade. It became known for its third tenant, the Polar Bear Ice Cream Shop, which was beloved by many. J.C. Brigham founded the Polar Bear Ice Cream Shop in 1941 and produced old-fashioned batch ice cream with a homemade taste. The original location for the small shop was on West Davis Street, and they had a rough go with it through World War II with the sugar shortage. They survived and in 1946 moved to 1207 North Zhang Boulevard. They did so well there with their ice cream, malts, shakes, and hot fudge sundaes that they opened a second location in 1950. By 1966, they had expanded to 9 locations, including ones in Irving, Grand Prairie, and Duncanville. Most people associated the cool, frosty design of the building to Polar Bear, thinking it was designed to look like a glacier or an igloo. But not so, as the structure was originally built in 1932 for the U.S. Sandwich Shop, which occupied it until 1937 and was followed by the Shell Grill, who was there until 1945. Not much is known about the original design of the building and why the U.S. Sandwich Shop chose it. The building was constructed as a simple wood frame structure with a stucco finish over wire mesh. The boldest feature was the large parapet that fronted the building with multiple curving forms. Architecture critic David Dillon called it a, quote, somewhat baffling cross between a melting iceberg and Old King Cole's crown, end quote. There was a recessed colonnade supported by unusual columns with a large bulbous bases and thin columns above holding up arches between the columns. In the days of Polar Bear, it was painted a frosty white, which helped it to look like a glacier. A long blue and white sign was mounted in front of the building with Polar Bear ice cream spelled out and snow dripping at the top. And of course, a polar bear sat on top of the sign corner. Polar Bear closed sometime in the 1980s, and the building was then occupied by a series of successive restaurants until the last one closed in 2014, and the building became vacant. A severe windstorm in 2015 knocked the parapet off of the building, and in 2020 it partially burned. Following the fire, the structure was deemed a public safety hazard by the city of Dallas, and it was demolished. Now a large apartment project is going up in its place. Staying in Oak Cliff, we are smoking now, as our next stop is for some good old Texas barbecue. Many of you know El Ranchito on West Jefferson Boulevard. Wait a minute, that's not barbecue. Well, you would be right. However, it wasn't always a Mexican restaurant. It was actually built by William J. Red Bryan, so nicknamed for his red hair, for his thriving barbecue business. Red's parents, Elias and Sadie Bryan, moved the family from Cincinnati to Oak Cliff in 1910 and opened a smokehouse on Center Street. Elias developed a new meat cooking technique and a spicy sauce recipe there that would become a hallmark of the Bryan family. Red graduated from Oak Cliff High School in 1923 and attended SMU, where he received a botany degree. He then opened a floral business on Jefferson. However, in 1930, he realized that there was more demand for sandwiches than flowers. That's when he decided to use his family barbecue knowledge to open his own barbecue place. It was a rough start for a young married businessman with no capital to speak of. After being turned down by the bank for a loan, he went to a landlord he knew for a $300 loan. Red then went to Atlas Metal Works, where they had a 15-foot by 50-foot metal building available for $650. He convinced them to let him put a down payment of $50 on it. The Tin Shack, as it was nicknamed, was placed on Jefferson Boulevard in Oak Cliff. He made similar deals to get electrical and plumbing set up for the business. After that, he had no money for meat, so he went to a loan agency to get a $100 loan for food. The new business was definitely a family affair. Red and his cousin Frank Lacey cooked, Red's wife tended the counter, and his mother washed dishes. It was a slow start to Brian's barbecue, but as the word got out and more people came, he had made $150 the first month off of 5-cent burgers and 10-cent barbecue sandwiches. By the end of the year, he had paid off his debts incurred starting the business. As Red's barbecue business grew, he embarked on an ambitious plan in the mid-1940s to build a much larger place to expand his operations. He hired Charles Dilbeck to design a restaurant on Jefferson Boulevard befitting a barbecue. Dilbeck, a prolific Dallas architect, was known for his quirky designs with everything from small houses to motels. The design of the new restaurant was meant to evoke a Western-style ranch that had evolved over time with additions and changes, which was a signature of Dilbeck's ranch-style designs. It was definitely a departure from the mostly traditional early 20th century masonry buildings found along Jefferson Boulevard. The building was a mix of materials with brick laid in Dilbeck's signature drunken pattern, where bricks were laid in a wavy pattern, and stone that was salvaged from an East Texas courthouse. The walls had vigas and even a wagon wheel embedded into the brick wall that served as a window. The wood-shake roof had large overhangs supported by exposed rafters. Massive chimneys, including a circular one, also a Dilbeck hallmark, sprouted from the roof, which was topped by an open-air bell tower with a weather vane that, of course, had a cow. When entering the restaurant, you were greeted by a massive fireplace, another Dilbeck hallmark, and an interior befitting of the ranch theme. The oversized booths were covered in calfskin, and wild animal heads hung on the walls. Sawdust covered the floors, and the aroma of meats was heavy in the air, and at each table were metal containers with warmed barbecue sauce. The restaurant cost $65,000 to build and opened in 1947 under the new name of Red Brian's Smokehouse. The restaurant was a success and expanded its menu with chicken, ribs, salad, and potatoes. After Oak Cliff was voted dry in 1957, the beer sales dried up and so did the profits, forcing the restaurant to close. The building was sold and several other restaurants and even a moose lodge operated there before the Sanchez family purchased the building in 1983 and opened El Ranchito. The basic form of Red Brian's Smokehouse and the majority of the original features remain. Gone are the wood shakes on the roof, as they have been replaced with Spanish clay tile, and neon now emblazons the exterior. The quirky Dilbeck features remain, though, and the wind vane with a cow still twirls in the wind. The interior fireplace remains, and the interior decor has evolved with a Mexican flavor overlaid on the original Western one. Our second to last stop is definitely an exotic one, where restaurant patrons were transported to the desert of North Africa. Yes, quite an experience for Dallasites, however not an uncommon one, as the 1950s brought a slew of exotic-themed restaurants to take people to faraway places with exotic food and decor. In Dallas, there was the Safari Restaurant, which opened in 1956 in the new Preston Royal Village Shopping Center, which had a large elephant stationed outside and an interior of murals of India. The Port Socol opened in 1959 in the new Sheraton Hotel in downtown, where you could sail the ship White Cloud to Papeete, Singapore, Saigon, and Macau. And then there was the exotic La Tunisia, which opened in Exchange Park in 1959. Exchange Park was the vision of William Blakely, who transformed a 120-acre site at Harry Hines and Mockingbird into a new mixed-use development designed by Lane Gamble and Associates of Dallas. The construction of the cutting-edge development started in 1956 with the Exchange Bank Tower, and then was followed by the new Braniff Airways headquarters tower. A couple of years later, construction started on a new concept, an enclosed area or quote-unquote conditioned street, as the developer put it, with shops, services, and restaurants connected to the office towers, basically the forerunner to the modern mall. When the mall portion of Exchange Park opened in 1959, so did one of the most unique and well-executed exotic-themed restaurants in Dallas, La Tunisia. Connected to the mall and located near Exchange Bank, it was advertised as the, quote, the perfect setting for an Arabian Nights atmosphere of romance and intrigue, end quote. The lush North African garden, fabric-laden interior, veiled waitresses, and North African music all led to the unique dining experience like none other in Dallas at the time. Guests of La Tunisia entered through a loggia surrounded by an exotic garden of plants, shrubs, and 15 palm trees imported from the Gulf to obtain a, quote, North African, end quote, feel. The lush tropical plants were even kept warm by special infrared heat lamps that went on automatically when needed. Greeting you at the loggia entrance was Abdul, a 6'2" tall Watusi doorman in his native North American robe and Watusi chieftain's ceremonial hat, which made him 9 feet tall. Before working there, he was a palace guard for Sheikh Mirza Hassan of Morocco. The interior of the restaurant was stunning and meant to impart the feel of a North African luxury with its authentic decorative elements and design. And this was no ordinary interior design, as it was created by Marco Design and Engineering of Los Angeles, who supervised the work on Disneyland. The designers on the team worked on many Disney projects and were art directors for Disney and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. The foyer of La Tunisia featured a hammered brass chandelier and an intricately carved ashwood chest inlaid with ivory, which belonged to the late Sultan Kazim of Egypt, who used to keep holy scriptures in the cabinet. The main dining room seated 225 and was a showstopper designed to make you feel like you were under a large tent in the North African desert. The ceiling was covered with hundreds of yards of sheer fabric gathered around silk-lined chandeliers with tassels. Hundreds of small sparkling lights were attached to the chandeliers and would glow pink in the daytime and gold at night. Walls of the dining room were covered in charcoal flock silk, with one of glass that looked out onto the lush garden. The cocktail lounge was known as the Sheik's Tent and was meant to impart the feel of a kind of dwelling used by desert rulers. It was entered through wood-carved doors with panels inlaid with mother-of-pearl. The ceiling was covered with silk fabric with tassels draped between the walls. One wall had a carved wood panel post with mirrors between to visually double the size of the room, and the other wall had built-in lounge seating with genuine leopard pillows. The tables were traditional brass engraved trays from Africa. Special ceiling lights changed every 60 minutes to present the effect of the changing desert sky throughout the day and into the night. There was also an additional small private dining room space in the restaurant that bridged the gap between Texas and North Africa called the Pioneer Room. The decor consisted of authentic patchwork quilts on the walls with 16 pairs of longhorns hanging that had famous Texas ranch brands embossed on each set. The chairs were covered in genuine calfskin. The ceiling in the room had crisscrossed willow panes through which small lights sparkled. To carry on the North African theme, the staff was also dressed appropriately. The waitresses were in harem outfits of bell-shaped skirts of red satin, gold blouses covered with gold coins, and traditional veils. The cocktail waitresses wore silk pantaloons, blouses, and veils. The waiters wore North African dress of balloon pants, white serving jackets, and red skull caps. The restaurant was owned by James Riggs, Charles Snyder, and Iqbal Singh Sekin, and cost $500,000 to build. It was managed by Sekin, or Ike, as he was known, who was originally from Punjab, India, and had previously worked at the Safari restaurant in Preston Royal Village. The food was just as exotic as the decor, with everything from steaks to an Arabian specialty of apples stuffed with chicken and lamb. La Tunisia was touted as having the romantic charm of a North African desert oasis and hailed as one of the best examples of interior design in the nation. One could certainly understand why, with the interior that transported patrons to another continent. La Tunisia closed in 1972, and Arthur's West restaurant came in behind them after they removed the North African decor and relocated from their former home on McKinney Avenue. In 2008, Exchange Park was sold to UT Southwestern, and the former restaurant space was converted to offices. The area no longer resembles the original La Tunisia after years of changes. Unfortunately, UT Southwestern will be demolishing the entire Exchange Park complex in 2022. The last stop on our journey is in East Dallas, where Dallas met LA with a 1960s Googie-inspired restaurant design at the corner of Gaston and Carroll Avenues. That restaurant led to the creation of one of the world's leading casual dining companies. Norman Brinker and his wife Maureen, both accomplished athletes, opened Brink's Coffee Shop in 1964 in the new building. Norman was on the 1952 Olympic equestrian team and competed in the modern pentathlon championships in 1954. Maureen Little Mo Conley was a tennis player who competed in the U.S. and international tennis championships. The striking design of Brink's was by Paul & Paul Architects with Carter Miner as consulting architect. It was of the modern Googie style, which was named and popularized in Los Angeles. The style was influenced by car culture, the atomic age, and the space age, and was used heavily for motels, gas stations, diners, and coffee shops. Eye-catching diagonals, geometric shapes, vibrant colors, mixed materials, and bold signage were used in the style to stand out from the crowd. Strong angular roof lines were a hallmark of the Googie style, and Brink's certainly had that, with two rear-sloping zigzag slab roofs. Angularity continued in the stone-clad walls, extending from the building, and even the walls of concrete bricks were laid at an angle. The entrance doors were located between a large protruding angled stone wall and a sloping wall of glass. According to David Dillon of the Dallas Morning News, quote, "In the 1950s and 60s, diagonal was synonymous with modern, the architectural equivalent of a tail fin, and Brink's was as modern as one could get," end quote. True to the Googie style, signage was important, with a large Brink's attached to rising above the front parapet. A freestanding sign advertised Brink's using three separate sign shapes connected to a square black pole. The top ovoid shape read restaurant, and the bottom rounded diamond shape read coffee shop, while the middle trapezoidal shape read Brink's and had a horse with a jockey. The sign lit up night and the top portion rotated. The use of an equestrian was a theme, with the metal outlined horse and jockey on the stone wall near the entrance and a backlit wall-mounted horse and jockey in metal and translucent plastic on the inside of the restaurant with overtones of gold, royal purple, and white that produce a stained glass effect. Even the menus had a horse and jockey on the cover. The colorful Googie-themed interior of the restaurant was designed by Peter Wolf Associates. Dallas Fountain and Fixtures made the custom yellow vinyl-coated booths and Formica tables and counters. Light fixtures and table settings were custom crafted. A rustic waterfall inside added a touch of nature and coolness to the space. Brinker said at the time that the theme, quote, "symbolized the friendly, congenial atmosphere," end quote. The restaurant seated 135 and served chicken in the rough, strip and hamburger steaks, hamburgers, tacos, chili, shrimp, and scallops. Brinker had some restaurant experience in California before moving to Dallas, where he oversaw the expansion of Jack in the Box into a national chain. After a successful 2-year run at Brink's, he sold the restaurant and started a new concept called Steak and Ale. It was a far cry from the Googie style of Brink's, as the Steak and Ale restaurants featured Tudor-style exteriors with dark and heavy Old English-inspired interiors. Brinker grew the chain to over 100 restaurants and sold it to Pillsbury, who put him in charge of its restaurant operations. There he created the Bennigan's concept and is credited with a major turnaround of Burger King. He left Pillsbury in 1983 and purchased a small concept restaurant in Dallas on Greenville Avenue called Chili's. Brinker grew Chili's into an incredibly successful chain and brought it under the Brinker International Holding Company located here in Dallas. They now have 1,600 restaurants in 31 countries. After Brink's closed, the building had several restaurant uses and then became a laundromat. In 2014, it became vacant and was threatened with demolition. Thankfully, it was purchased by a new owner in 2018 who restored the facade of the building. It sat waiting for a new tenant until 2020 when Lucky's Hot Chicken leased the space, and opened a new restaurant which plays heavily on the 1960s Googie vibe. The sign has been restored and now rotates once again and promotes Lucky's Hot Chicken. And little do those customers know that the funky building on Gaston Avenue spawned a culinary empire of casual restaurants around the world. Well, that brings our culinary and architectural journey to an end, and now it's time for the check. It was certainly a buffet of different architectural styles and restaurant concepts that were all unique for Dallas and their times. I hope you enjoyed the sampling today of Dallas's delectable dining establishments, and that it will make you think twice the next time you are at a restaurant admiring the architecture and decor.
Brandon Murray is a certified archivist working at the Dallas History and Archives Division of the Dallas Public Library. Born in El Paso, but raised in Fort Worth, Texas, he has a Bachelor of Arts degree in History from the University of Texas at Arlington and a Master's of Library Information Science degree from the University of North Texas. Brandon's previous experience includes over 2 years of digitization and cataloging of special collections items for the Norwick Center for Digital Solutions at Southern Methodist University. On behalf of the Dallas Public Library, Brandon writes a series of Dallas history blog articles for D Magazine called Tales from the Dallas History Archives about items from the library's historic photograph collection. This morning, Brandon will share with us Do It for Pappy, the legacy of Pappy's Showland, and C.A. Pappy Dolson.
Appetite comes in many forms, whether it is food, drink, entertainment, laughter, dance, or titillation. Throughout most of the 20th century, few in Dallas could argue that one man was an expert in appetite, C.A. Carl Aubrey Pappy Dolson. Though Dolson wore many proverbial hats during his life, from club owner, talent scout, theatrical agent, to name a few, he is perhaps most well known for a 1,300-seat club and outdoor pavilion known as Pappy Showland at 500 Commerce Street in Oak Cliff that served as a restaurant and watering spot for Dallas's noble and notorious for 12 years from 1946 to 1958. During its existence, Pappy Showland housed a full orchestra and dance floor and even saw circus acts appear. According to a Texas Monthly interview with Dolson in 1974, as many as 3,000 people would visit the club on a Saturday night to see notable performers, including Emmett Kelly, comedians such as Eddie Youngman and Bob Hope, as well as booking African-American musicians to perform for white audiences during segregation-era Dallas. They hired tap dancers and held burlesque shows, boxing and wrestling matches as well. Dolson said, "I built it and opened it with big acts, big bands. There weren't any strippers, and in the beginning, it was fantastic." According to Dolson, in a 1973 Dallas Morning News interview, he added, when asked about his association with what was referred to as the city's hoodlums, that there were always people who want to cut into something a man is successful at. Dolson used Pappy Showland to debut a robust menu prepared by Pop DeMomio, which included a filet mignon dinner for $2.50. He showcased and promoted repeated appearances of Uncle Willie Pratt, a child performer that Dolson first discovered in 1936, who was known for his dancing. The club was something of a splendor in post-World War II Dallas, unduplicated in the nation. But Oak Cliff voted to become dry in 1956, and after 2 years of running his club without alcohol sales, Dolson was forced to close Pappy Showland in 1958. According to Dolson, his total financial losses from the club's closure amounted to $108,000. The careers of Pappy Dolson, Uncle Willie Pratt, and Antonio Pop DeMomio continued after the doors of the Showland closed for the last time, with each of them focusing on a distinct appetite for Dallasites for many decades. C.A. Carl Pappy Dolson was born on December 6, 1898 in Memphis, Tennessee. He was the oldest of 7 children, and his father, Charles, worked as an engineer in the cottonseed oil plants. Dolson first became an entertainer when he was 13 years old and was an actor and variety artist for Percy Haswell Stock Company. And Dolson toured with the Emma Bunting Stock Company, and that included singing, dancing, and musicals like Busy Izzy and Happy Hooligan. He enlisted in the Army in April 14th, 1917, and was discharged April 12th of 1919. Pappy first came to Texas with the Bunting Company which broke up in San Antonio, eventually leading him to Longview, Texas, with a job as manager of the Harris County Country Club. Soon after moving to Dallas in 1929, Dolson took ownership of a bottling company, but quickly became involved in the nightclub scene. La Boheme on Ross Avenue was the first Dallas nightclub he opened, apparently in partnership with notorious gambler and eventual Vegas casino owner Benny Binion. Pappy once helped a hotel detective subdue a man who Dolson had to knock out after being punched in the mouth, and he discovered the next day that it was wanted gangster Pretty Boy Floyd, who swore Dolson to secrecy. Floyd died in a shootout 3 weeks later. In 1936, Dolson opened his first downtown location with Club 66, which would one day be known as the Carousel Club under a more infamous owner. In 1938, Dolson went into business with Club 25 owner Abe Weinstein to open a club together. Weinstein was born in London, England in 1907 and came to the United States with his family in 1910. Weinstein first opened his club in 1932, charging 10 cents to men who could choose between 75 women wearing dresses. This club was called the Triangle Club. And 5 years later, Weinstein started the 25 Club, where everything cost a quarter. And there were regularly featured well-known African-American performers such as Count Basie, Lena Horne, Louis Armstrong, and T-Bone Walker. Abe and Pappy opened and operated Abe and Pappy's Cabaret and Grill with dog acts, dance teams, vaudeville routines, magicians, singers, acrobats, and more. Abe and Pappy's became known as the place where musicians from orchestras would hang out at night into the morning after they played their gigs at other clubs. The two men remained close friends for most of their lives. In late 1945, Dolson bought out Weinstein from his portion of Abe and Pappy's, and the ownership of Weinstein then renamed it the Colony Club. Weinstein rebranded the establishment and it became a Dallas icon until it was closed in 1972. In its day, it featured comedians, burlesque performers, strippers, and Weinstein is also credited with naming one of his most famous dancers, as Juanita Slusher became Candy Barr. Barr became a major attraction from college kids to top members of Dallas's crime boss Benny Binion's organization. By 1945, Dolson announced plans to build Pappy's Showland at 500 West Commerce Street at the site of a pecan grove across from the Skyview, with an opening date of February 15, 1946. Jim Smith, known for building the streets of Paris for the Texas Centennial, was hired to build it. The design included an elliptical dance floor and curved terraces for the guest seating and the bandstand. A tent system for the cooler months was devised in order to have an open-air venue in warmer seasons. In 1947, 15-year-old Uncle Willie Pratt was one of the most continuously appearing nightclub acts in Dallas thanks to his repeated engagements at Pappy Showland. Dolson would often tell people that Pratt was anywhere between the ages of 8 and 45, claiming falsely that Pratt was quote-unquote a midget in order to build his mystique around his performances. Dolson discovered Pratt around 1936, originally part of a duo to perform as part of several Negro acts, as they were called, in a Cab Calloway show at the State Fair of Texas. Uncle Willie performed at Abe and Pappy's before joining Dolson at Pappy Showland. He was mostly a self-taught dancer who excelled at tap dance, even on roller skates, and he would do pantomime song and dance numbers. Uncle Willie appeared in a 1945 Cab Calloway movie, and he also toured the country with band leader Tommy Dorsey. Pratt and Dolson made many appearances together outside of the Showland in promotion of their mutual brand that they had created. This included a locally produced half-hour musical and variety program for Channel 8 called Captain Pappy's Showboat. However, Pappy Showland served also as a venue for outside events for businesses, professional associations, including the Texas Service Station Association, and social clubs, regardless of ethnic or racial background. Dolson was an active member of and booster for the Dallas entertainment business community, and many of the awards and honors Dolson received were during the period that he operated the Showland. He got an award in 1950 for his work with the Boys Ranch that was sponsored by the Dallas Variety Club, an organization of Dallas entertainment personalities. And from 1952 to 1953, Dolson worked as Chief Barker of the Dallas Variety Club. During the 1952 State Fair of Texas, the Dallas Variety Club hired the International Variety Club Circus to perform in order to raise money for the Variety Club's Boys Ranch. The circus included trampoline acts, clowns, acrobats, and various animal acts, including elephants. Dolson was involved as Chief Barker for these performances. One of the elephant acts was twin baby elephants, which were promoted as the first twins born since 1894, according to records of the time. The cuisine was a highlight of the Pappy Showland experience, especially during the time frame that Antonio Pop DiMomio was in charge of the kitchen. Pop DiMomio was known for his Pop Spaghetti House restaurant, which had been a popular spot for the newspaper crowd, opera singers, and visiting celebrities, the location of which moved several times uh, before he began working for Pappy Showland in 1947. The Showland menu included items like the following. For $3, you could get a T-bone steak with Italian salad, French fries, and milk or coffee, or a sirloin steak with Italian salad, Lyonnaise potatoes, and milk or coffee. $2.50 would get you a filet mignon steak with Italian salad and gobs of French fries and milk or coffee. Or for $2, you could get Pop Spaghetti Caruso with Italian salad and milk or coffee, chicken cacciatore with Italian salad, Lyonnaise potatoes, and milk or coffee, or a special spaghetti dinner with Italian salad that included spaghetti and meatballs and milk or coffee, or you could get spaghetti with butter sauce, mushroom sauce, marinara, olive oil, and garlic, also with an Italian salad. Pop DiMomio reopened Pop's Spaghetti House at its original location on December 6, 1950. The new Spaghetti House featured a favorite feature of the original place, besides his cuisine, which was a jukebox filled with opera records. DiMomio fondly recalled incidences at his old restaurant when opera singers would visit late in the evening, breaking out in song to be joined by DiMomio. Despite DiMomio's focus on his new restaurant, the Showland was still operating with lively entertainment. The entertainment lineup planned in the time frame immediately after Pop's departure included 6 big showgirls, Pappy himself, who appeared as a Sultan and Oriental number, as it was called, and a collar and a square dance number, along with bringing out girls at several intervals, along with singing by Mary Carroll and Roland Dreyer, tap dancing by Steve Day, and ballroom dancers Colette and Gail. Comic Little Joe Sailor did a harpo march routine, as well as Uncle Willie Pratt doing dance in pantomime and singing. By 1953, wrestling matches on Tuesdays became a regular and popular feature at the Showland. Dolson began to face difficulties in producing profit from the Showland by the mid-1950s, as big-name entertainers began taking performance gigs at the new Dallas Memorial Auditorium before they would play the Showland. When Oak Cliff banned alcohol sales in 1956, it spelled the end for Pappy Showland, as Dolson lost $16,000 in alcohol profits alone by the time the club closed in 1958. With the demise of the Showland in 1958, Pappy fell back on his always steady entertainment booking operation, handling showbiz figures of all types, including exotic dancers. Dolson was the theatrical booking agent of former associate of Jack Ruby, Mrs. Nancy M. Powell, stage name of exotic dancer Tammy True, for a time. On November 24, 1963, Jack L. Ruby, born Jack Rubenstein, the proprietor of the Carousel Club, fatally shot Lee Harvey Oswald at close range in the left side of his stomach using a .38 caliber revolver. The shooting occurred while Oswald was being transported to the Dallas County Jail for the assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy, the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit, and the attempted murder of Texas Governor John Connally 2 days earlier. Subsequently, the FBI conducted numerous interviews and background investigations into friends and business associates of Jack Ruby, including nightclub owners, dancers, etc., which included Dolson. During a November 24, 1963 interview with FBI agents, Dolson told them that he had known Jack Ruby for about 16 years, but did not consider himself a close friend of Ruby's, because he was never able to get along with him very well, describing Ruby as, quote, a very hot-tempered individual and will act or fight on the spur of the moment, end quote, having stopped a conversation he once had with Ruby when he thought that Ruby might attack him. Dolson also witnessed, quote, 2 or 3 Hungarian refugees standing on the street corner. Without provocation, Ruby suddenly attacked these men and beat them severely. He did not know the identity of these individuals, nor the reason for this unprovoked attack, end quote. Ruby was denied membership in the Variety Club in Dallas, and there were disagreements that he had with the American Guild of Variety Artists in Dallas as well. Dolson never heard Ruby express political opinions or thoughts on the United States government, although Dolson did believe Ruby committed Oswald's murder for publicity and did not know much about Ruby's background other than he had come from Chicago to Dallas, and there was a rumor that he fled Chicago out of fear after being shot for unknown reasons. Dolson was present at the FBI interviews of the number of Dallas strippers due to his role as their booking agent. One such person was exotic dancer Ellen Vines, stage name Precious Diamond, who was a waitress for 2 months at Ruby's former club Silver Spur in Dallas several years prior. She briefly dated Ruby during their employment there, Years later, on July 26, 1976, in an effort to follow up on identifying a supposed stripper named Baby Doll Holly, the FBI agents attempted to speak with Dolson at the Shorecrest address they had on file from his 1963 investigation interviews, but were informed by a maintenance man that Dolson was residing at a Terrell State Hospital in Terrell, Texas, due to health reasons. Abe Weinstein testified about Jack Ruby before the Warren Commission because of Carousel Club connections next door, but denied any relationship with him. However, in 1963 interview with Dallas resident Ralph Henry Neal, a cook formerly employed by Abe Weinstein and Carl Dolson, testified that around 1946 he witnessed, quote, rough characters like Lewis Green, a man who was reportedly known for possessing a machine gun. Green brought a man from Chicago with him to the club one night named Rubenstein, who to Neal looked a lot like Jack Ruby. Rubenstein asked the men present that evening, including Dolson and Weinstein, about purchasing a club. Dolson asked Rubenstein to produce money, and Rubenstein proceeded to roll out $40,000 worth of $100 bills onto a meat block. According to Ralph Henry Neal, while Weinstein didn't drink, fight, or gamble, Dolson was a bit of a rough character. As an example, Neal describes an incident at Pappy Showland around 1946 when Bill Decker, who was Dallas's sheriff when Neal was recounting the story to the FBI decades later, threw wine on an African-American performer. Dolson apparently immediately closed the place, refunded money to those present, and then proceeded to give Bill Decker a very thorough beating. Police were not called. As of 1967, Pappy represented 49 female stripper clients. In 1973, Dolson provided strippers to 4 Dallas clubs, which was down from 11 clubs a few years before. Some of the strippers who claimed that Pappy refused to represent them were suing him for discrimination at the time, but Dolson claimed that he's just the agent, and it's the club owners who are determined who they want to hire. Abe Weinstein died in 2000 of a heart attack. But Uncle Willie Pratt continued to perform after Pappy Showland closed and remained close friends with Pappy Dolson for the rest of their lives. He did 2 8-month tours in Vietnam entertaining American troops. By 1977, Pratt performed his tap dancing, singing, and pantomime act as a regular attraction at the Busy Bee, a lounge and strip club on 1114 North Industrial, adorned with various forms of nude women depicted in artwork in the club. He remained a big draw for audiences, especially with couples on weekends. Though he appeared at one point in Las Vegas, and in later years appeared in a Spike Lee film, Uncle Willie retired from entertaining in 1982 and began driving a hotel airport shuttle bus. He said that he was always pleased when an older passenger recognized him from his glory days. Willie Platt II died August 18, 2000, at the age of 68 of cancer at Methodist Medical Center. Pratt was survived by his son Willie III, a niece, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and 3 grandchildren, as well as 1 great-grandchild. The DiMomio family of Dallas originated in Italy with the birth of patriarch Antonio Pop DiMomio on August 26, 1885, in Capizzano, Italy, where he later married his wife Beatrice in 1905, who was 2 years his senior. According to his petition for naturalization document that he filed in 1960, while he was a cafe owner, as of 1960, the couple had 7 children with the following names and birth years: Flora Dispenza, 1908, Sammy, 1909, Alta, also 1909, Tosca Campbell, 1919, Sarah Barbaria, 1923, Frankie, 1924, and Josefina, 1929. The first Pop Spaghetti House restaurant was opened by Antonio Pop DiMomio on Bryan Street around 1932, with Pop as owner and chef. Pop's Spaghetti House was being run by Antonio's son Sammy in 1949, as Antonio was doing the cuisine at Pappy Showland. But by 1969, Antonio's son Frank DiMomio, who spent years working at his father's restaurant, was the owner-operator of the DiMomio's Italian restaurant at 6312 La Vista across from Lakewood Bank. Antonio DiMomio died on October 6, 1973, but he was not the last DiMomio to serve Italian cuisine to Dallas customers. Though Pop's Spaghetti House closed 3 months before Antonio's death, his family reopened a few months later with the restaurant name The Godfather. Towards the end of his life, when Pappy Dolson turned 79, he was greeted with a surprise birthday party with 17 strippers that viewed Dolson like a father figure. In a 1973 interview, Dolson considered his place in life, stating, quote, "Most of my old cronies from those days are gone, except Abe, by golly. I'm about the last of the Mohicans. No, I'm no angel, he added, slowly and retrospectively. I just like to play the game right, end quote. Carl Aubrey Pappy Dolson died at age 83 at Terrell Hospital on January 3rd, 1979, of natural causes, where he had been hospitalized for 2 years. Dolson's health declined after a 1976 fire at his home, which caused medical complications. Pappy was twice married and survived by relatives including a brother, 2 sisters, and 3 grandchildren. Dolson's funeral was a small affair with a handful of family, friends, and associates, including Willie Pratt. Chastity Fox, a former client of Pappy, called him, quote, an incredible human being. Strip cheesing changed when he left the scene, end quote. While Emma Papathedosian, who, along with her husband, owned the Athens Strip, said of Dolson, quote, he was a gentleman, a kind man, king to the strippers.
Hi, I'm Misty Mayberry, a certified archivist and manager of the Dallas History and Archives at the Dallas Public Library. We are pleased to be the virtual hosts of the 23rd Annual Legacies Dallas History Conference. I want to share some information with you about our collections and take you on a virtual tour behind the scenes. Spanning an entire acre of space, we have over 65,000 reference books on all aspects of Texas, over 500 manuscript collections totaling over 4,500 linear feet, 1.5 million photographs, 7,000 maps, extensive holdings of Texas newspapers, magazines, and school yearbooks, 300 oral histories, and over 200 cabinets full of vertical clipping files organized by subject.
Hi, my name is Molly Tupera. I'm one of the staff members here at the Dallas History and Archives Division. Right now we are standing in the Virginia Lazenby O'Hara Fine Books Room. This is part of our special collections that was formed by members of the Dallas public who wanted to contribute to a world-class collection for all library patrons. Some of our books include first editions, limited editions, artist books, and books from all different languages. So this collection was established shortly after the Friends of the Dallas Public Library was founded in 1950. It included a number of influential Dallas citizens, such as the McDermott, the Harris, and other families. So if you want to follow me, we'll come take a look around parts of the room. This is an undated Burmese manuscript leaf, a gift of the Friends of the Dallas Public Library and St. and Margaret Harris. This text is drawn on a thin wooden board modeled after a palm leaf. Palm leaves and bark were commonly used as writing instruments instead of paper in this part of the world. These are our Diderot encyclopedias. This is one of the most valuable and intellectually significant parts of our collection. When they were first published, Diderot's encyclopedias were extremely controversial for all of the knowledge that they brought together in one place. This beautiful book is bound in mother of pearl with an embossed design of the Madonna and Christ child on the front. This type of book is called a breviary, a liturgical book used for reciting prayers at certain times of the day. This book was created in Paris in 1869 and is written in Spanish and in Latin. Its official title is Oficio Divino para todos los días de fiesta y de precepto. This item is one of over 100 drawings from the Jack Ruby trial, created by journalist John Groth. Photographers were not allowed in the courtroom during the trial, so these drawings are an invaluable primary source. Dr. Gibbs is pictured here, one of the witnesses asked to speak at the trial. The library acquired these items from Groth in 1984. The library also has an oral interview with the artist about these drawings. So this collection is really a gift from different members of Dallas to other library readers who might not otherwise have a chance to interact with books of this uniqueness and caliber.